Good morning and welcome to the judges, teachers, guests, and participants of FRSIS 2022. Now, I would like to introduce our judges today. The Chief Judge is Associate Prof. Dr. Haliza binti Harun, Senior Lecturer, University Science Islam Malaysia. The second judge is Ms. Salmia Hani binti Sidi from Sekolah Menengah Sains Hulu Selangor. The third judge is Ms. Shafiza binti Sharif, Sekolah Menengah Sains Tuanku Aisyah Rohani. And I, Nuraldina Shafika from Sekolah Menengah Sains Hulu Selangor, while the timekeepers Amar Daniel bin Zafar Azmi and Mama Adam Aiman bin Faizal are from Sekolah Dato Abdul Razak. Now, allow me to read the rules. Each team should consist of presenters and a technical assistant. The presentation must focus on the sub-team assigned to the team. The duration of the presentation should not be more than 10 minutes. The bell will ring once at 9 minutes and twice at the 10 minute. A question and answer session will be conducted after each presentation. Now, I would like to invite Sekolah Menengah Sains Pasir Putih to present.
Dear friends, have you ever fallen asleep in class? Have you ever witnessed your students dozing off or perhaps losing motivation as they complete classroom tasks? Been there, done that. Truth is, ever since returning to school, students have shown declining interest in studies, perhaps due to 2 years of virtual learning. Therefore, our team from Pasir Putih Science School conducted a research to discover the effectiveness of collaborative learning in reviving students' academic performance in our district. Before we continue, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh to all judges and audiences.
From now on, allow me to say just CL when referring to collaborative learning. As mentioned before, this is to tackle academic-related issues involving secondary school students after the pandemic. You might be wondering how we first began our research journey. Some articles published by UNICEF, University of Denver, and even our local Malaysia Now News Hub feature issues students face now. Something needs to be done fast.
Ladies and gentlemen, Schlecker stated that education is a way of working, including communication and collaboration as an active and engaged citizen. Resonating his idea, Gross also said that students learn best when they are actively involved. That brought us to CL.
CL is not something new, and we have always known its effectiveness, especially in language teaching. However, given the pandemic that limited physical learning, we were curious if it is still widely accepted and implemented in schools. Hence, we aim to prove how it could improve academic performance. Of course, it's the duty of teachers to properly plan lessons that implement CL. These three are the basis of our research framework. Teachers CL happens with teachers' commitment, students' engagement, and students' readiness.
Hence, our hypothesis is CL is widely accepted and practiced by teachers and students, which is aligned with the SKP to support learning.
Now, let us enlighten you on our research method. As you can see, we use mixed method, quantitative and qualitative. As for the former, we distributed Google Form to teachers and physical questionnaire to students. Apart from that, we use qualitative method by interviewing teacher and student, which then qualitative method, we use both method to gather wholesome data on the research.
Out of about 11,000 students and nearly 1,000 secondary school teachers, the numbers you see on screen are our total respondents. The respondents are from 6 government secondary schools in Pasir Putih, so we believe the responses represent other teachers and students well. We used snowball technique to identify potential interviewee. As we visited the schools, we had asked the principal and teacher to name a teacher and 2 students for verbal interview. This is vital in ensuring that the response we harvest is quality.
As for the instrument, semi-structured interview questions were used so that we get extensive answers. How did we collect data? Firstly, we got approval from JPN and PPD before we went interviewing. Then we met school admin, counselor, and teachers when we visiting the school to collect data, which then we analyze by frequencies and thematically.
We used physical questionnaire. The physical questionnaire was adapted from Brown. The questions include whether students like CL and if they find it fun.
Next, we use semi-structured interview questions for long elaboration from respondents, not only yes or no answers. Lastly, we made the questionnaire digital for teachers so they could fill it out at their own pace when they did not have class. It actually utilizes exactly the same question as students to validate and complement the responses from teachers' point of view.
After the school visits, we managed to gather as many as 302 students from Form 2, 3, and 4. As you can see, majority students agree and completely agree that CL helps learning more joyful and encourages teamwork. Or even though many agree that CL helps them do better in exam, quite a significant number of them are unsure of its direct influence on academic performance.
Lastly, we ran the ANOVA test on the mean. We learned how to use the SPSS from our principal, Dr. Hajah Zalina. As shown, there isn't much differences in terms of students' preference for CL. Hence, we can say that they enjoy CL regardless of age.
After the school visits, we managed to get a total of 234 teachers responded to our Google form, and 97% of them implement CL in classroom. The 3% might be representing those who aren't well informed on CL or believe it is not useful. Now, from the bar charts, we can see that majority teachers agree that CL helps learning more joyful for the students. From the table, you can see that the mean for each category is between 3 and 4. This means all teachers are inclined to say that they agree CL helps them in studies.
Before we proceed, allow me to play some footage from the interviews we conducted.
Pada pendapat cikgu, apakah masalah-masalah yang dihadapi pelajar dalam melaksanakan pembelajaran kolaboratif ini?
Masalah pelajar ni biasanya ada segelintir pelajar yang merasa rendah diri apabila dia mengetahui rakan dia tu lebih educated ataupun lebih ke depan dalam pendidikan atau dalam pencapaian pekerjaan, maka rendah diri yang mereka segan untuk beri pendapat. Jadi perlulah kita beri motivate ataupun kesedaran bahawa yang sejarah boleh dikira.
Now, you heard it yourself. Although teachers agree that CL is indeed effective, it could be quite challenging to carry it out as students' motivation vary according to the performance. Some are eager to share while some rather stay passive. While our research hypothesis is proven, as teacher and student both accept and practice CL, there are some underlying issues that need to be addressed to allow CL to function effectively. This is what we discovered after interviews with teacher and student. Most issues that arose are pertaining students related to their motivation and confidence to work and collaborate alongside peers.
Given our findings, we strongly believe that CL is an effective tool in learning. Therefore, we have come up with a model to further enforce CL in classroom. As you can see, in the yellow inner layer that surrounds CL are ASK and motivation. These are important as they determine whether students are ready to collaborate in lesson. With positive attitude, skills, and knowledge, students undoubtedly will get over their shyness and be willing to interact more actively. Next is teachers' commitment. Teachers should find more creative ways to promote CL in classroom. Finally is school culture. School admin should promote CL in learning and teaching sessions and help teacher in doing so.
Now let us define the outer layer, the support. Basically, these are the organizations and institutions that should work in providing teacher and student with enough information about CL. For instance, PIBG can install some useful tools that can allow CL to take place effectively, such as Japanese table and portable whiteboard. On the other hand, the JPN and PBD should organize more courses exploring different ways to carry out CL. NGO and PIBK can help in terms of providing financial support, apart from offering professional help to facilitate teaching and learning.
to to so as part of our effort to scaffold CL in learning, we have designed some informative buntings to um, implement so that the students and teachers can implement CL in classroom. Our school have also begun with program Guru Muda, which empowers CL to help students with academic performance. Our final slide is our references.
All in all, we really believe CL is effective in facilitating students while learning and improve teacher and students' engagement in class. As promoted in 21st century learning, we really hope that our findings and our proposed model especially helps you teach and learn even more effectively.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you to the presenters. Now, I would like to invite participants to ask questions.
Hello, hi. Thank you for the brilliant presentation. So I am Noralia Shaira from SPP Integrasi Koping. So my question is, why is your research only based in Pasir Putih? Thank you.
As Form 4 students, we know we are really busy and we don't have enough time to do research. So we choose Pasir Putih to allow only local, sorry, to, to dive deep enough about CL.
That's all. Next question.
Hello, my name is Bentley from Sekolah Menengah Science Kuching. I would like to point out a question to you. You just stated that 100% of teachers do not agree with CL, that it is effective and useful. Based on your data, why do the teachers disagree that CL is effective?
So thank you for the question. Okay, here's the thing. Some students aren't like they are very introvert person. They can't really share opinions. So that's why some teachers disagree with CL. And maybe this teacher has a better way for their students to have a better academic performance. Does that answer your question? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for the questions. That's the end of this presentation.
Good morning and welcome to the judges, teachers, guests, and participants of FRSIS 2022. Now, I would like to introduce our judges today. The Chief Judge is Associate Prof. Dr. Haliza binti Harun, Senior Lecturer, University Sains Islam Malaysia. The second judge is Mrs. Salmia Hani binti Siddiq from Sekolah Menengah Sains Hulu Selangor. The third judge is Mrs. Shafiza binti Sharif from Sekolah Menengah Sains Tuanku Aisyah Rohani. And I, Mia Irina binti Muhammad Mutazam from Sekolah Menengah Sains Rembau, while the timekeepers, Ahmad Daniel bin Zafrul Azmi and Muhammad Adam Aiman bin Faizal are from Sekolah Dr. Abdul Razak. Now, allow me to read the rules. Each team should consist of presenters and a technical assistant. The presentation must focus on the sub-team assigned to the team. The duration of the presentation should not be more than 10 minutes. The bell will ring once at the 9th minute and twice at the 10th minute. A question and answer session will be conducted after each presentation. Now, let's hear from the second team, Sekolah Dato' Abdul Razak, to present.
The term the lost generation reminds me of the famous classic story of Peter Pan and the Lost Boys by J.M. Barrie. The Lost Boys were stuck in Neverland and never got to become adults if they were not saved. This directly includes the lost generation, who lost a significant amount of education during the COVID-19 pandemic and who suffered a great loss. The term the lost generation reminds me of the famous classic story of Peter Pan and the Lost Boys by J.M. Barrie. The Lost Boys were stuck in Neverland and never got to grow to become adults if they were not saved. This implies to the lost generation, who lost a significant amount of education during the COVID-19 pandemic and would suffer the same fate as the Lost Boys if nothing is done to rectify this. In this presentation, we seek to analyze the issues related to education, plaguing the current generation due to the recent pandemic, and the solutions in averting the dire consequences that may befall the country in the future.
Ladies and gentlemen, the lost generation can be associated with these three key phrases: learning losses, the remote online learning paradox, and character development deficit. Firstly, the lost generation constitutes students who suffers from different levels of learning disengagement. This lost generation can be characterized by a symptom known as learning losses, which can be defined as a general or specific loss of knowledge or skills due to an extended gap in a student's regular education program. Secondly, it is important for us to understand that the remote online learning initiative during the MCO was the cause of learning losses, which was initially thought to be progressive. During the MCO, it was found that it failed to keep students engaged in the learning process. It was truly challenging for parents and teachers to ensure the continuity of education for their children. A study on the economic impacts of school closure in Malaysia, reported by the Center for Market Education, reflected the ineffectiveness of remote online learning put into practice by the education system, where Malaysia actually comes second after Myanmar with 11.4 months of learning losses. We believe that this initiative was simply idealistic because, in reality, some students were already unable to access education due to the unavailability of devices. While some of those who could afford to go online, ironically, not all focused in class. They played games, watched tutorials, and even slept with the cameras turned off. This virtual learning truancy eventually created the online learning paradox, which defeated the online learning purpose in the first place. All these misconduct issues are gradually inhibiting the creation of wholesome citizens armed with high moral standards as envisioned by the national education philosophy. The national education philosophy is committed in developing citizens who are harmoniously balanced, not only intellectually, but also physically, spiritually, as well as emotionally. However, the goal of the NEP will only be a distant and unachievable dream if the lost generation is not saved.
Ladies and gentlemen, time and tide wait for no man. In this endemic phase, time constraint has become a substantial challenge in trying to avoid the lost generation. To begin with, both teachers and students are bogged down with too much juggling and trying to keep up with the current syllabus, as well as putting together the missing puzzle pieces of learning that were lost during the pandemic. Understanding the correlation between the length of the MCO and learning disengagement is crucial, as the longer students are disengaged, the more severe the impacts become. With almost 2 years of ineffective education, this serious issue requires interventional measures. Now, more than ever, actions need to be taken with utmost urgency, as failures to attend to the challenges in averting the lost generation can bring about catastrophic impacts and implications to both to the society and the nation. The future of the country will definitely be at a loss. It, the future of the country will definitely lose a significant amount of education due to early education dropout, less skilled labor force, and economic downturn, which can lead to increased poverty and social problems.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is believed that school is the first social structure a child encounters, and it provides an excellent opportunity for character building. School is not just about learning concepts, it is also a place where we can build a foundation to become profound, upstanding adults. This will create wholesome citizens with integrity, compassion, empathy, and patriotism in the future. However, during the pandemic, character development was gravely hampered due to the paucity of socialization attributable to online learning. In an article published by the South China Morning Post, the lockdown interfered with the child's social growth. In their formative years, teenagers usually spend more time at school, resulting with plenty of human interaction. Peer influence is an important feature of adolescence, but being confined at home practically stunts character development due to social anxiety, separation anxiety, resulting to the increment of suicide rates among children beyond and under 15 years old, as reported by the same publisher. Character development deficit will definitely lead to serious implications, which, if ignored, will create a morally decadent generation.
Ladies and gentlemen, alone we can do so little. Together we can do so much. With the challenges and implications, these are some of the possible initiatives. Firstly, for teachers, they can conduct diagnostic tests. Teachers may set a test to gauge students' understanding and mastery of past topics. Through the test results, teachers can develop tailored programs to cater to students' specific needs, like workshops or one-to-one consultations. Through this, students who missed out on lessons during the pandemic can be saved. Moving on, students can also help in the form of peer support. Students feel much more comfortable if assistance is rendered by a peer in their own studies. In our school, we found that students prefer to seek help from their own friends over their teachers when it comes to understanding difficult topics or lessons. Therefore, we initiated our own project that we proudly named Study with Gemilang to help our batchmates in our studies. Since its inception 7 months ago, students have found it to be very useful, especially when revising past topics and understanding the present lesson learning class. We truly hope that this project will inspire everyone who is watching to initiate something to help a friend in a similar situation.
Fellow audience, today's children are tomorrow's leaders. Hence, it is very important for us to ensure the continuity of character development for our children, as the lack of it may lead to a huge loss in the well-being of the nation and the workforce. The National Association of Colleges and Employers Job Outlook Survey in 2012 reported that some qualities related to character development are highly demanded by employers, such as teamwork, communication, and problem solving. This shows the significance of character development among our children for their future endeavors in not only becoming good employees, but more importantly, to become good citizens. The question is, how can we promote character development? The answer is building profound leadership characteristic through volunteerism. Volunteerism is a cornerstone of effective character development, and we at SEDA initiated a program called the Kausa Soup Kitchen Project, where our students are involved in community work around Seremban, where they distribute dry food and cook meals to homeless people. Next, our students are also involved in clean-up activities at public premises, such as the Friends of the Mosque program. Lastly, our students are also involved in organizing a campaign known as Food Drive Campaign, which is a joint effort between SDA and ABIM Negeri Sembilan to render aid in the form of provisions to low-income families affected by the MCO.
We believe in the effectiveness. We believe in the effectiveness of practical lessons when it comes to character development. Through students' involvement in volunteer work, they can get first-hand experience of how these underprivileged people live, hence developing a sense of empathy and gratitude for the privileges they get to enjoy. A person is at their tallest when they kneel down to help others. And this is the epitome of an exemplary leader. Ladies and gentlemen, we implore you to follow our lead and join us in our small effort to continue the process of nurturing character development among students to fill in the missing blank left by the MCO. We hope that this research has shed some light on the pressing matter plaguing the current generation so that urgent measures can be enforced. With the proposed solutions and concerted effort from everyone, we truly hope that we can face all these challenges head on and rise above the storm. This, in turn, will help us avert a lost COVID generation. Thank you very much.
Thank you to the presenters. Thank you to the presenters. Now I would like to invite participants to ask questions. Please be reminded that only 2 questions can be asked.
I'll ask one question first while waiting for one question from the audience. Can you walk us through on how you conduct your study in terms of collecting your, as I say, solutions, right? You had the problems and you presented us with the solutions, right? So how did you come up with the solutions itself? Any data collection involved, and how did you conduct, if you have any, data collection involved in coming up with the different solutions, the different programs that you have mentioned earlier? Thank you.
Thank you very much, madam, for your excellent question. Now, I will try to walk you through our research and finding the challenges and the solutions to those challenges. So, first of all, we conduct a survey at our school asking them which do they prefer, online learning or face-to-face. So, based on the survey of around 200 responses, we have found that students are more interested and more attracted to face-to-face learning, physical education present in class. So we understand that they would like to be at class. So we found the challenges on how to develop their education and character development in face-to-face situation. So we found that they lack time. They need to catch up from previous lessons during the MCO that they lost, and now they want to cover and proceed with the syllabus. So it is very hard for them. So we tried to find solutions to those time constraints. So as Faris said earlier, we conducted our own initiatives, which is Study with Gemilang, where more advanced students can help less struggling students to catch up with their studies. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the question. That is all for the presentation today.
1, 2, 3. Thank you.
judges, teachers, guests, and participants of FRSIS 2022. Now, I would like to introduce our judges today. The Chief Judge is Associate Dr. Prof. Dr. Haliza binti Harun, Senior Lecturer, University Science Islam Malaysia. The second judge is Miss Salmia Hani binti Siddiq from Sekolah Menengah Sains Hulu Selangor. The third judge is Miss Shafiza binti Sharif, Sekolah Menengah Sains Tuanku Aisyah Rohani, and I, Nuradina Shafika from Sekolah Menengah Sains Hulu Selangor, while the timekeepers Amar Daniel bin Zafar Azmi and Muhammad Adam bin Faisal are from Sekolah Dr. Abdul Razak. Now, allow me to read the rules. Each team should consist of presenters and a technical assistant. The presentation must focus on the sub-team assigned to the team. The duration of the presentation should not be more than 10 minutes. The bell will ring once at the 9-minute and twice at the 10-minute. A question and answer session will be conducted after each presentation. Now, I would like to invite Sekolah Menengah Sains Sembrong to present.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good morning to the honorable judges and the audience here. Today, I'm Nurin Zulaika.
And I'm Putra Aiman.
From Sekolah Menengah Sains Sembrong. We'll be presenting our investigation based on the main theme from pandemic to endemic. Our sub-team is education. Our team consists of 4 members. The presenters are me and Putra, our moderator as well as our repertoire, Raiha Amani, our technical assistant, Muhammad Amin, and lastly, our advisor, Sir Muhammad Farid bin Sidmi Rahman. The title of our presentation is Investigating the Negative Consequences of COVID-19. We investigate the consequences the pandemic has left on the education system as people shift from remote to face-to-face classes. There's 2 statements of the problems. The first one is the deterioration of children's mental health in adults. The first one is the deterioration of children's mental health as they endure a second significant change from online to face-to-face classes as well as advice. The second one is the declining academic development of children and how to best prevent a similar situation from repeating. The objectives of our investigation is to offer the best advice and solution to curb the consequences of the pandemic in regards to the mental health and education aptitude of youngsters. Our research branches into 2 topics. The first one is the mental health of the pandemic and how it disrupts students' education. In this research, we study the deteriorating educational prowess of students after the lockdown ended. And we will also promote effective solutions in order to curb the issue with deducted through printed scholar opinions and anonymous respondents.
Thank you, Nurin, for the introduction. I will take this from here. In this generation, students are often labeled diligent based on their academic prowess, while those with lesser achievements are groundlessly assumed to be lazy or as such. With regards to this, there are crucial factors that the education system have turned a blind eye on. These are the quantitative data that we have collected through anonymous respondents regarding their mental health after the face-to-face classes began. About 40% of the students we asked answered that they felt burdened to start learning again, while the other 60% said that they are very anxious about the new norm that they will have to adjust to. These are the common sources of anxiety that we have researched. Some people have been impacted much more than others. Young people are left exposed to social isolation and disconnection because of prolonged school lockdown. This is the main source of the first problem. With this condition, it can worsen the emotion of worry, uncertainty, and loneliness, resulting in emotional and behavior disorder. which causes the second issue. Forcing youngsters to stay at home shields them from social exposure, therefore causing them to grow unaccustomed to the major change that the world faces. This will also make them experience multiple drawbacks in their studies. These are the solutions that we have gathered through our research. For example, a solution to get rid of anxiety are for society to take measures in protecting students' mental health by helping them make revision so they will be unafraid for the upcoming test. The major factor aside anxiety is depression, which negatively affects how you feel, how you act, and how you think. The major change in their surrounding forces them to readapt when school reopen after the lockdown. As the lockdown persists, students resume their daily life in solitude and far away from social interaction, threatening their calm of mind by experiencing inescapable negative thoughts. Social restriction at that time also make it very difficult for students to receive care, and in many instances, inadequate information and misinformation about the virus fuel people's anxieties and worries, preventing them from getting care. These are the most effective solution to the issue that we discern through our research. Students could talk to their friends and close relatives about their problems and do something to relieve their tension so their depression can be lessened before it starts to deteriorating their mental state.
One of the most significant impacts of this pandemic has been in the field of education, where it has led to the largest disruption of global education systems in history. When schools and colleges around the world closed due to COVID-19 lockdowns, students and educators alike were left wondering what the future holds. The party involved were forced to adapt with a new way of learning, therefore utilizing the method online learning. These are the quantitative data we have compiled through anonymous respondents regarding their study development and grade results after face-to-face classes began. Based on the data collected, about 80% of students' grades worsened after online classes. These are some of the difficulties that were mostly pointed out by students, such as failing to recall previous lessons, unsuitable study environment, and difficulty to keep track of teachers' lessons. Before this method was developed, students were left behind not knowing anything and blindly enjoying their holidays. Our analysis shows that the pandemic has left the students on average 5 months behind in lesson. This long period of time causes massive fallback and they forget their predetermined study goals. Online learning has also changed and destroyed the whole environment of studying, since there's lesser social interactions, upfront discussion, and among many others. Some students who have disengaged from school may have slipped far too backward, losing knowledge or skills they once had, missing key pieces of knowledge that are necessary for success. They are also at risk of finishing schools without the skills, behaviors, and mindset to succeed in the college or in the workforce. This could be the root to the second issue. With regards to this, online learning does not only need a smart devices, but also a stable line connection. As we know, not everyone was born with a silver spoon, and not everyone can afford those pricey learning materials to ensure quality learning. Due to the knowledge students have missed, the education system solely depends on their academic achievements in the past or in the struggling present. Their side talents and capabilities are mostly disregarded since the drawback has largely affected the talk and talk system. This caused a drastic change in the education system's long-standing reputation. So, we have come up with multiple solutions that may help lighten the burden. Firstly, we can make funding for low-income students. Those who struggle with study materials will be provided the appropriate assistance by holding large campaigns and donations. One of the other methods is that teachers play the role of keeping track of their students in order to pick up on their weak subjects. Tracking progress benefits both students and teachers. Students can see how they are doing in various subjects, and teachers can see which of their teaching approaches are working and where they might need to make adjustments. Another solution is hiring counselors to refine their own study methods in order to help fasten their learning development. Try to put the problems in their shoes and understand what they are feeling. The problems could be anything, even family problems and housing stress. This will make them feel there is always a person who supports them from behind and they are not alone.
With all that said and done, we conclude that a student's mental health plays a large role in their mental state. Based on our conclusion, we deduce that teachers need to advance their method in teaching their students, while at the same time, the education system needs to better reform their methodology in order to be on par with the students' current capabilities to ensure that no pupils are left behind. These are the references from printed opinion of scholars and official scientific website that we have gathered through our research. Again, my name is Putra Aiman.
And I'm Nur Zulaika
From SM Samrong. Thank you for listening to our presentation and
Assalamualaikum
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you to the presenters. Now, I'd like to invite participants to ask questions.
Tes. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thanks for the presentation. I want to ask you a question. So based on the solutions you have been stated, how can you know that your solutions are effective? Do you have any proof for that? Thank you.
Testing. Okay, thank you so much for the question. We made sure that our solutions are solid based on the Google Forms that we have made to ask our batchmates. Based on our presentation, we focus on mental health. Therefore, the victims are our batchmates ourselves. In regards to this, we asked our batchmates what issues they have faced after the lockdown ended and what major factor do they think disrupted their education. When we have made sure that the problems are solid, we ask them what solutions do they think are the best and what solutions they have tried. Some of them hired counselors and some of them made sure that they have enough social interaction with their family to ensure that their mental health improving day by day. Of course, the improvement is slow, but a small first step is better than no steps at all. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. Just a clarification, meaning that your, what was my question? Meaning that your solutions were, that you presented were based on the answers given by the respondents in your questionnaire. Okay, all right. So what were the challenges that you faced in terms of collecting? Do you have any challenges? Because you're using only one research instrument, right? Which is the questionnaire, no interview or whatsoever. Do you have that?
While we were making the Google Forms, we did go around asking in person, but we couldn't record because of our lack of resources. We also use qualitative data by researching scholar opinions from official websites like UNICEF and some websites from official universities as well. And we also related to our experience myself. For me, I experienced the troubles as well. My grades faced a drawback and my position in my batch dropped after the pandemic. I also experienced a few mental health issues, if I were to say so myself, which is social anxiety. So I'm sorry for my shaking.
One last question. I was triggered, intrigued. Last question, right? I was intrigued by I found a mistake in your data saying that most of your members or classmates or batchmate, as you say it, they found that they were like 5 months behind. How do you come up with that particular period, meaning that 5 months they have lost a lot of things, they have to catch up for 5 months, because it's very specific when you say 5 months, right, the duration?
5 months with a duration that was on average in the world, because we also mix the data with the websites that we have researched. Thank you for your question.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the questions. That's the end of this presentation.
Teachers, guests, and participants of FRSIS 2022. Now, I would like to introduce our judges today. The Chief Judge is Associate Prof. Dr. Haliza binti Harun, Senior Lecturer, University Sains Islam Malaysia. The second judge is Mrs. Salmia Hani binti Siddiq from Sekolah Menengah Sains Hulu Selangor. And the third judge is Mrs. Shafiza binti Sharif from Sekolah Menengah Sains Tuanku Aisyah Rohani. And I, Mia Irina binti Muhammad Mutazam from Sekolah Menengah Sains Rembau, while the timekeepers Ahmad Daniel bin Zafrul Azmi and Muhammad Adam Aiman bin Faizal are from Sekolah Dato' Abdul Razak. Now, allow me to read the rules. Each team should consist of presenters and a technical assistant. The presentation must focus on the sub-team assigned to the team. The duration of the presentation should not be more than 10 minutes. The bell will ring once at the 9th minute and twice at the 10th minute. A question and answer session will be conducted after each presentation. Now, I would like to invite Sekolah Menengah Sains Dungun to present.
The impact of the word viruses has become clearer on the young's mental health. The impacts consist of three, which is the direct consequences of the disease itself. Okay. Before we start our presentation, Assalamualaikum and hello to everyone in this majestic hall. And those who are live streaming from YouTube. I'm Umaira Nur Khalis, representative from Sekolah Menengah Sains Dungun, and together with
Razana Najira binti Razami.
And we are going to present a presentation entitled After the Devastating Arc,
What's the next step?
This is the key topics of our presentation, which is online learning. Some research suggests that certain types of students, including younger male and female students, may be at the disadvantage in ability to adapt online courses. And the next is mental health for students. Heightened levels of psychological distress and downstream negative academic consequences are prevalent under normal circumstances. Our presentation will consist of 5 sections to make it easier for you to understand, which is definition, scope and limitation, problem statements, solutions, and conclusions. Our scopes and limitation are the Southeast Asia. For the audience, you might be asking why we choose Southeast Asia as our scope and limitation. This is because we believe that students in this area have faced the same problems since they live in the same environment. They also suffer from economically unstable from the West than the Western countries. These are the research methodologies that we use, such as the online survey. We conduct an online survey to ask our friends and peers about what they have experienced during the pandemic and how it affects their online learning. We also ask some of our relatives, like family members, to broaden our perspective on how the pandemic have affected their mental health during the COVID-19, and also self-experience, obviously, because we are the targeted subjects in this research. And also articles, we use articles for our research to find some statistics to support our presentation. And these are the problem assessment. And firstly, students' well-being. Some students face difficulties, for instance, bad family institution, personal problems, and environment. As for personal problems or bad institution of the families, some students is economy unstable in their home. So when they have many siblings, they have to share one device even if they have the classes at the same time. Lack of exposure and experience due to long period of quarantine for teenagers, which should be their exploring phase. This is clear on the point itself. And the next is social media influence. Influencers tends to show the best side of themselves, only the best side of themselves. So when students realize they cannot afford things to look like their influencers, to look like their idols, they become low self-esteem because they can be better. And the next is no face-to-face interaction, like students lose interest lose interest in their studies and the classes as they are lacking of physical interaction. And the next is distraction. Students tend to easily lose focus because they don't know what they have to learn and they think that the teachers don't know what they are doing actually. That's it for my presentation. I will pass my presentation to my friends Razan and Nazira.
All right. Thank you, Maya, for the amazing presentation. Now, ladies and gentlemen, every problem must have their own solution. Am I right? So, we go back to the first slide. The first slide. The first slide. Right. Man is by nature a social animal. A quote by the well-known Aristotle. What does it mean exactly? Well, we as human need the human interaction to keep our mind alive, to keep in touch with the world. Hence, we need to, like he stated, we need to face-to-face interaction with others to stay healthy, both mentally and physically. So, with the research we done, with the survey we conducted, we came out with solution. There is two solutions that we divided for the students, the solution that the students themselves can do, and the parents, what they can contribute as parents to help their children, who also students like us, to help catering these problems. So, the students, first and foremost, avoid fatigue and burnout. After, after a long day of looking at your screen, studying and having online learning, a student can feel anxious and feeling tired after overusing the gadget. This is because the blue lights that the gadgets are producing are overstimulating the brain's activities, which will fasten to make the students more tired. Hence, they should take a break from using the online stuff. For example, like using the gadget. I should emphasize on taking a break. What does it mean to take a break? Well, taking a break means going officially offline. Do not open your phone and scrolling to TikTok because that is not what taking a break means. Taking a break is like open your books and do something else other than online. All right. Next, rewarding yourself. After a long day of work, you're feeling so burnt out, you feel like unappreciated. If there's no one going to appreciate yourself, how about you just appreciate yourself? You can reward yourself by eating ice cream or going out with your friends just to make yourself feel better after a long day of online learning. Now, next, parents. What parents could do? Right. Parents' involvement in their children's life could give a positive impact to the student. It is based on research. It is proven that parents' involvement in their children's life give a good impact to the student. For example, the students get better grades. The students are more disciplined, and with that, the next one, parents' acknowledgement of their children's achievement. If parents are more open-minded and notice that their children are improving, obviously the children want to improve more and want to show their parents what they can do. This is just show that a little bit of intention from the parents could give a positive impact to the students around the world. Now, before we end our presentation, let me illustrate what we just presented. So, we as the lost COVID generation should be more adaptable and creative to find the alternative to further our studies while maintaining our well-being. Next, thus, this is just show we cannot just turn a blind eye with the problem we are facing. But, however, we should just embrace it and accept the challenge because if there is no challenge now, when are we going to improve? Second, adults. Guidance from adults are really playing the big role in children's growth. This is because adults have been through life longer than us. So obviously they have a much better experience and their words and advice will come in handy, even though their life experience will be a little bit different from us. I think that's all from us. I hope our presentation found informative and open you guys' eyes to the new aspect of the problem that we are facing, especially amongst us students. So these are the resources that we are using. Yes. So that is all from us. Thank you very much. This is Razana Nazira.
And I'm Moira Nurhalis.
Signing out. Thank you.
Thank you to the presenters. Now I would like to invite participants to ask questions. Please be reminded that only 2 questions can be asked.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Zati from SMS Light Tattoo. I would like to ask a question. As we can see in the pandemic, the parents also work remotely in the house. So how can the parents help involve with the student study if they are busy with their work? Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the question. Well, like I said just now, as aforementioned, a little bit of attention, a little bit of love by the parents. It could be just, you can just go through, open your WhatsApp, like when there's like the boss is talking or something, the parents just like be a little bit considerate. What open your app, like WhatsApp app, and say, hey, how are you doing? Are you doing fine? Maybe that's like the bare minimum what a parent could do. Other thing, well, as you can see, some of the parents have their own business. And I feel like the parents that have their own business in their house should not be a problem to go check on their children and their well-being. And in my opinion, in my personal opinion, as parents, they should know how to balance. It's their responsibility to take care of their children, no matter how busy they are. Like as students, we should take care of ourselves too, even though we are busy with our studies. It's just our responsibility as human being. Every human being has their own responsibility, including parents. So does that answer your question? Okay, thank you. Next question.
I need clarification.
Thank you for the brilliant presentation. I am Bentley and I would like to point out another question to you. How do you ensure the effectiveness of the solution that you have just presented just now? Okay, I will repeat it for a second time. How do you ensure the effectiveness of the How do you ensure the effectiveness of the solutions that you have just represented just now?
Thank you for the. Hello? Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for the question. How can I prove that the solution works? Well, since we are not doesn't have that much of a resources, that's based on my own experience actually. Rewarding yourself and also taking a break is actually a common thing to do by a common thing to do as a student. Yes.
No. Please answer.
Okay.
Okay. To ensure the effectiveness of the solution that we are just conducted, we actually ask our peers and teachers on what would they do if they want to feel more confident in studies or they feel more motivated in studies. And some of us say that we should reward ourselves by doing something that we feel good at after a long time of studying, such as me myself. After I studied for a long time, I will open a book and do some drawings. And I asked my parents, what should I asked my parents what should they do to ensure their children's safety. They said that parents parents should have a spot of knowledge to help them with their study at home.
All right, I'll just like to clarify. So, from my understanding, from your responses or answers now,
Yeah.
you're saying that the respondents, oh, sorry, okay, the respondents that you, got your data, right? That you
Yeah.
obtain your data are from students from your school, or does it involve other students? Or because in your earlier presentation you did mention something about Southeast Asia, so how is that related to your current study or investigation that you did?
Back to our scope and limitation, we believe that students in Southeast Asia have face the same problems since they live in the quite identical environment. Like we are actually economically unstable than the Western world, than the Western part of the world.
Thank you for the questions. That is the end of the presentation.
Thank you.
Teachers, guests, and participants of FRSIS 2022. Now, I'd like to introduce our judges today. The Chief Judge is Associate Prof. Dr. Haliza binti Harun, Senior Lecturer, University Science Islam Malaysia. The second judge is Ms. Salmia Hani binti Siddiq from Sekolah Menengah Sains Hulu Selangor. The third judge is Ms. Shafiza binti Sharif, Sekolah Menengah Sains Tuanku Aisyah Rohani. And I, Nuradina Shafika from Sekolah Menengah Sains Hulu Selangor, while the timekeepers, Amar Daniel bin Zafrul Azmi and Muhammad Adam Aiman bin Faizal are from Sekolah Dato' Abdul Razak. Now, allow me to read the rules. Each team should consist of presenters and a technical assistant. The presentation must focus on the sub-team assigned to the team. The duration of the presentation should not be more than 10 minutes. The bell will ring once at 9 minutes and twice at the 10 minute. A question and answer session will be conducted after each presentation. Now, I would like to invite Sekolah Menengah Sultan Abdul Halim to present.
Assalamualaikum and hi, I'm Rahana from SYMPOSUM. As the first speaker, I would like to introduce our second presenter, which is Muhammad Arid here, our moderator, which is Nur Zainatul Widat, and our technical assistant, which is Ryan. Without further ado, I would like to extend a warm welcome and walk you through our presentation. Before getting deeper into the whole topic, let me explain to all your audience about the Sustainable Development Goal for Focus, which is education. The Sustainable Development under United Nations fourth target is to guarantee that all children will have access to complete, free, quality education by 2030. And to protect the well-being of children and ensure that they have access to continued learning, UNESCO in March 2020 has launched the COVID-19 Global Education Coalition with the aim of facilitating the return of students to school when they reopen to avoid an upsurge in dropout rates. Unfortunately, the COVID-19 pandemic has brought upon a conspicuous predicament. Studies from the world has witnessed temporary closure of schools resulting in 91%, I repeat, 91% of students worldwide being affected. And by April 2020, nearly 1.6 billion children and youth were out of school. From March 2020 to July 2021, Malaysian students dropout rate is 0.22% out of the entire population. This was supported as in our reference by C2000. Okay. Moving on, the ripple effect of this post-pandemic crisis is even seen in SYMPOSUM. Our team has found out that, sadly, during the MCO, our students have lost the level of motivation students have has been declining. Hence, many countries believe that achieving a quality education is an uphill mission. This was supported as in our reference C2021, who mentioned that motivation to study has decreased due to the lack of companionship. And when at home, there are a lot of distractions that stop one from concentrating in class. Whereas ZooETL 2020 stated that playing video games excessively during pandemic becomes a threat to learning. As for our literature review to support our research gap, studies from Chung ETL 2020, UNICEF Malaysia, and UNFPA 2021, as well as SIVA 2022, who all support the lack of motivation students have via remote learning and how they lose interest in learning gradually. With regard to our research, our team has focused on two research objectives. The first one, which is to determine the level of motivation among some such students after the COVID-19 pandemic. And the second one, which is to ascertain the correlation between post-pandemic motivation and academic performance among the students. I would like our objectives to be ingrained in your mind because we will answer it furthermore into our presentation. Moving on to our next part, which is our research methodology, we had collected data from 221 respondents who answered our 38-item questionnaire. These respondents comprised of Form 1 to Form 5 students with the distribution number as shown on the screen here. To be specific, our survey utilized two ways of getting input. The first one, which is using the multiple choices questions, and the second one is via Likert scale questions. We prepared a scale descriptor from 1 to 5 as we can refer to on the slide given. Next, as shown by the slide here, we had focused our studies only on students in SYMPOSUM. We had constructed our questionnaire using the Google form and divided it into 4 domains, which is Part A, respondents profile, Part B, present self-motivation, Part C, learning performance, and Part D, suggestions. We resorted to distribute the hard copies of the survey to the students. In a span of a week, raw data was later managed to be keyed into the Google form by our team manually. Now, let's look into that. Now, Let's look into the data analysis in detail. Our data analysis is separated into two parts. The first one, which is descriptive data from respondents' profile on selected items in that domain. The data later was transformed into percentages and means. For part B, present motivation domain, our main objective is to find out the student's level of motivation by getting the means of each item. Let's move on to the inferential data analysis, where our main focus is to find out the correlation between motivation and learning performance to answer our second objective. Using the Pearson correlation analysis in SPSS, we had managed to identify the level of significance relation between students' level of motivation and their learning performance. To continue with the findings, I would like to invite Muhammad Ariq to deliver his presentation.
Thank you, Rahana. Hi, I'm Averting from SYMPOSUM, and for the rest of our presentation, I'll be sharing with you our descriptive and inferential data analysis along with some suggestions at the end. Firstly, as you can see here, we divided our descriptive data analysis into two parts, which is respondent profile and students' level of motivation. As you can see here, 53.8% of our respondents are male while the rest are female. Now, in our survey, we posed a question during MCO, how much time do you spend on studying per day? And surprisingly, 52.5% of them answered only 1 to 3 hours, while 11.3% of them didn't study at all. From this data, we can assume that most respondents did not pay much concern on their education during the pandemic. Into the next slides, we can see we also asked them whether MCO has negative impacts on their academic performance. As the result, a whopping 83.3% of the respondents answered yes. This evidently indicates that students really think that MCO has negatively affected their academic performance. Moving on, 34.8% of our respondents say that their last achievement in exam before MCO are 4 to 7 A's, while 3.2% of them managed to get straight A's. In this next slide here, 60% of our respondents agree that their examination mark before MCO are better than after MCO. From this descriptive finding, we can infer that students' learning performance has been tremendously impacted by the unprecedented educational change that occurred during the pandemic. Based on this data too, we managed to fulfill our first research objective, which is to find out SYMPOSUM students' level of motivation. By calculating the mean, we found out that the mean are 3.82, which is slightly moderate. Next, for the next research objective, which is to ascertain the correlation between motivation and learning performance, we use the inferential data analysis. By calculating the mean, by using the SPSS system, we found out that the correlation are 0.469, which clearly displays significant correlation between these two. Students complain about lack of interest and how it affects their academic performance has now turned out to be valid and verified by our finding. Previous researches by Tan and Chong ETL that was shown in the previous slide has further support our finding. Next, in the last part of our survey, namely part D, we post some suggestions to boost motivation for the respondent to choose. The first suggestion is, I wish for more school trips done by the school. As the result, about 94% of our respondents agree with this. Most of them wish for at least a school trip nearby our school, as they wish to enjoy beautiful scenery outdoor, simultaneously relieving their school life pressure. Next, about 93% of our respondents agree with the suggestion wish for more time for themselves. Now, if you look at the daily schedule prepared by the school, on weekdays, out of 18 hours of activities, only about 1 hour are provided for students to do their choice of activities, while having about 10 hours of studies. Beyond doubt, studying is vital, but overloading them and not given adequate time for rest is not beneficial for their mental health. This can cause negative impact on their overall well-being, which can lead to depression, anxiety, and the worst of all, suicide. The last suggestion is, I wish for gadgets to be used in class. Only 3.7% of the respondents disagree with this. I repeat, 3.7%. This indicates that students really wish for gadgets to be implemented in classroom for educational purpose. For example, a similar finding by Bayanova stated that gadgets can help students to be more motivated, better, and helping them master materials. Now, for the conclusion, we carry out this research in order to shed light on how motivation can truly impact students' learning performance. We also think that everyone in SYMPOSUM need to have the obligation to help students find their motivation so that the nearly lost generation can get their way back on their academic track. Before I end my presentation, here are all the references that we use in order to complete our research. That's all from me. I'm Arik.
I'm Rahana.
We're from Sekolah Menengah Sultan Abdul Halim. Thank you for your time.
Thank you to the presenters. Now, I would like to invite participants to ask questions.
Thank you for the presentation just now. And I would like to point out a question. You have just mentioned that a lot of students, most of them generally, prefer to have devices during their classes. And do you mean that they bring their own devices or the school provides their devices for them? And if the school provides the devices, does this mean all the other schools around Malaysia also have to do that? And are the funds enough for that?
Okay, thank you for the question. Okay, so firstly, there's a choice for the school itself. So firstly, if there's students that willing to bring their technology itself or gadgets to the school, they may. But the suggestion that we give to the school is to prepare like e-class on like a smart board or something in the class so that they can use it in the class without using their own money to buy the gadgets.
I would like to add some more. Furthermore, using gadgets in class does not imply that the school itself need to supply for the students. For example, we, the Brainiacs, conduct this research but using our own gadgets. But still, we have some problem because we are prohibited from bringing gadgets to school. So that's why we implied that we should allow students to bring gadgets only for academic purpose. Yes.
Does it answer your question?
Is there any question?
I'll ask the question. I've been asking the questions. All right, regarding your inferential statistics, right? You come up with the quite a solid results in terms of the significance of study, but you did not really mention how, what instrument, which questions probably that helped you to correlate the motivation as well as the language learning, not language learning, the learning performance itself. So can you identify the instrument and probably what were the steps taken? I do know about inferential statistics, you have to run in SPSS and so on, but just the instrument itself, the data source itself.
Thank you for that question, Miss Madam. When I mentioned that our survey questionnaire is divided into 4 parts. Part A, which is respondents profile. Part B, present self motivation. Part C, learning performance, and Part D, suggestions. So we have taken data from the Part B, which is present level of motivation, and Part C, learning performance. To find the correlation and be used into the SPSS, because we want to answer our second research objective, which is to ascertain the correlation between students' level of motivation and their academic learning performance.
To elaborate more, the part B, which is present self-motivation, the data from the part B that we collected at Google Form, we transform it into percentages and means so that we can use it in SPSS to determine the correlation using Pearson correlation. Yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for the questions.
Thank you so much.
That's the end of the presentation.
Boleh percaya lah.
Test. Test. Hello. Thank you, moderator. Assalamualaikum and very good morning. I bid to honorable judges, timekeeper, teachers, and my fellow audience. A very warm welcome to all who present here. My name is Nur Amira Balkis.
And I'm Stephanie Laura.
And we'll be presenting our school Sekolah Menengah Sains Kuching under the sub-theme of Averting a Lost COVID Generation. When our research entitled How Our School Achieves SDG for Education. As we all know, students all around the world had a toll on COVID-19 for the past 2 years, where they had to go through virtual learning due to school closures. Therefore, our team had decided to make a research to identify the problem faced by science school students, the initiatives given by our school, and the effectiveness of the given initiatives. Based on SDG for education, our school support SDG 4.1, which is to ensure free, equitable, and quality education for every student. 4.5, to ensure equal access to all levels of education. And 4.7, to ensure all learners gain knowledge and skills needed to promote sustainable development. So our research has two main objectives. So the first one is to dissemble the issues and challenges in Sekolah Menengah Sains Kuching. And the second is to show how science school management and academic staff help to ensure in the student academic throughout the pandemic. In addition, our school is also aware about the problem faced in the implementation of teaching and learning during COVID-19, which are the absence of online learning facilities, inconducive learning environment, and loss of direct interactions.
Next, I'm going to explain on how we conduct our survey of data collection. We have conducted 3 types of survey, which is the first one, paper survey, or also known as questionnaires. We have handed out 400 copies of questionnaires, but only 332 were considered valid for our data analysis. The purpose of this questionnaire is to detect the problems faced by the students during online learning, such as their internet coverage and what have the school done to help them to overcome it. Next one is telephonic survey. This survey is handled by our team member, Bentley, where we interviewed the parents of affected students via phone call to listen to their opinion regarding online learning. All of the parents that we interviewed agreed that the initiative taken by our school indeed motivate their children to study harder, and there is a growth of positive changes in them. Last but not least, we also conduct a face-to-face survey with the affected students and our Parents-Teacher Association's president, Puan Nur Surya binti Haji Mahrif. The affected students that we interviewed stated that life has been so much better after receiving the initiative given by the school. The initiative helps them to continue study, although they face problems such as poor internet connection. Meanwhile, our PTA's president also is the parents' representative. She felt proud of the school for being able to do their best to ensure the students to get quality education. As a mother herself, she admits that her children have a hard time to cope with online learning as there are so many distractions online. However, she felt glad that the initiative taken by the school motivates her children to continue study during the pandemic.
After we collected our data, we did our data analysis, where we had identified 3 major issues faced by science school students, which are internet problems, device problems, and inconducive environment. But our research will be more focusing on internet problems and device problems. This is because online learning took place at home. So there is nothing much that our school management and academic staff can do to change the atmosphere of online learning at home. Let us go back to our 2 main issues, which are internet problems and device problems. The internet problems has 2 types, which is the first one is no internet coverage at all, and second is minimal internet. What I mean by minimal internet is the students had to share the data with their family members, or they could not afford to continuously top up their mobile data. And the for device problem also divided into 2 parts. which is the first one, they had to share their mobile gadgets with other family member, or their parents could not afford to buy devices for their siblings or for themselves. Now let me present you about how my school encountered these problems. So for the internet problems, our school did on-site visitation, or as known as Ziarah Cakna. This is when our teachers delivered printed modules as well as food aid and monetary aid to lift up a bit of the burden. Actually, this method is applied to students who live near our school area. For example, the district is about 1 to 2 hours driving. Next is printed modules via post. So this initiative given to the students who are unreachable. What I mean by unreachable? Unreachable mean that they live far away from our school's area. For example, the district is about 3 hours above of driving. So this method will be given to students who live far away from our school's area. Next is for minimal internet. Our school actually did give students in need mobile top-ups from 10 ringgit to 30 ringgit periodically to those students who had been identified to have minimal internet. Last but not least, our school also lending out gadgets like laptops to those students who had gadget problems, in which resulted 30 students have been identified to have gadget problems. Whether the gadgets are damaged, broken, sharing the gadget with the other family members, or could not afford to buy gadgets.
All of you must have been wondering what is the outcome of this initiative taken by the schools for the students. I would like to highlight 3 positive impacts from this initiative. The first one is quality education. Since the initiative taken by the school is to ensure students to not be left behind in their studies, science school students have shown drastic growth in academic performance in spite of online learning challenges. It can be proven as we have compared and analyzed their examination result in the beginning of the pandemic and after the help was being given during the pandemic. Next is trust was built. Parents and students believe in the school to provide equality of education in spite of any obstacles has grown, which means the parents has the confidence that the school will definitely help their children to sustain their learning in the school. Indirectly increase the value of our school SM Science Kuching in the eyes of communities in Sarawak. Last but not least, emotional support. The students feel appreciated and motivated to pursue further on their studies despite the challenges that they face during the pandemic. The students must have not expected the principal and the teachers to care about their needs. Hence, they feel grateful and appreciated when they receive the help from the school. To sum up our research for today, it can be concluded that our school SM Science Kuching is definitely on a par with SDG 4 education 4.1, 4.5 and 4.7, which focusing on a free, equitable and quality education, equal access to all levels of education, also in the belief that all learners are able to acquire the knowledge and skills needed to promote sustainable development. This can be seen as 16.3% of students with no internet coverage problem, 9% of students with device problems, and 7.5% of students with minimal internet data, which come up with a total of 32.8% of students with problems attending online classes during the pandemic have been solved by the initiative taken by the school, which is on-site visitation or also known as Ziarah Cakna, printed modules delivery via post, mobile top-ups, and gadget lending. In conclusion, 100% of the affected students have shown academic growth after the initiative taken by the school, in which 100% of the affected students and parents are satisfied with the initiative taken by the school to help them. I think that's all for our presentation. Thank you for lending us your ears.
Thank you for the presentation. Now, I would like to invite participants to ask questions. Please be reminded that only 2 questions can be asked.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Lokman from Sekolah Menengah Sains Pokok Senar. I have a question. In order to implement all of the solution, the school must have the budget. So, but what if the school got not enough budget? So, what do you think the right way to overcome the problem? Thank you.
You can ask for help. Yes.
Yes. Thank you for the question. Actually, the funding for the implementations that our school had conducted, it was actually funded by the PIBG. So, you know, right, our school, we need to pay fee every year, and those fees, it will be the PIBG funding, it will be used for the initiatives taken by the school, or some of the initiatives that you saw just now, such as the monetary aid and the food aid. Actually, some of the teachers in our school, they donated those foods and money themselves.
Thank you for the informative presentation. I would like to ask a question. As we can see in the last slide, I would like to ask, how do you get the percentages of students that are affected by pandemic are satisfied with the school's initiative?
Thank you for the question. We can know that the students are satisfied with the initiative because we also conduct an interview with their parents, with their affected parents, the parents of the affected students themselves. So they themselves agree that the initiative has given a big impact to their children.
Is that answering your questions?
Thank you for the questions. That is the end.
Do we have time to ask another question? Right, I'll ask the question. I presume, right, based on your presentation, the preparation for presenting today, you did some readings. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yeah, right. So from your readings, do you think the challenges faced by your school, by your group members, lah, right? Whether they are quite similar to those found in your readings, probably around the world or even in the Southeast Asia region?
Yes, thank you for the question. Actually, the 3 major issues that we just presented just now, it is actually a nationwide issues faced by the students all over in Malaysia. And these are basically the main issues that students in Malaysia face. So yes, it is a general issues, not from our own experience or so on. It is a general issue.
Thank you for the questions. That is the end of the presentation.
So sekolah menengah pokok senar. Ini 7. This is number 7. Last kan? Last. How do you know? Where do you check? Hah? Kat mana? They will say in queue tu kan soal check the next. Okay. So page 23. FRSIS 2022. Dia pun dah tinggal sikit lah.
Test, test.
Test. Test. 1, 2. Test.
Yeah, we are ready.
Good morning and welcome to the judges, teachers, guests, and participants of FRSIS 2022. Now, I'd like to introduce our judges today. The Chief Judge is Associate Prof. Dr. Haliza binti Harun, Senior Lecturer, University Science Islam Malaysia. The second judge is Ms. Salmiah Hani binti Siddiq from Sekolah Menengah Sains Hulu Selangor. The third judge is Ms. Shafiza binti Sharif, Sekolah Menengah Sains Tuanku Aisyah Rohani, and I, Nuradina Shafika, from Sekolah Menengah Sains Hulu Selangor, while the timekeepers, Amar Daniel bin Zafrul Azmi, and Muhammad Adam Aiman bin Faizal are from Sekolah Dato' Abdul Razak. Now, allow me to read the rules. Each team should consist of presenters and a technical assistant. The presentation must focus on the sub-theme assigned to the team. The duration of the presentation should not be more than 10 minutes. The bell will ring once at the 9-minute and twice at the 10-minute. A question and answer session will be conducted after each presentation. Now, I would like to invite Sekolah Menengah Sains Pokok Senar to present.
Test. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And a very good morning, albeit to everyone present. We are the representatives from Sekolah Menengah Sains Pokok Senar, and the research that has been conducted is on schools reopening, the effects of COVID-19 pandemic on educational gap to its students. My name is Ana Hurun Shohada.
And my name is Lokman Hakimi. Nice to meet you.
So here are the representatives from Sekolah Menengah Sains Pokok Senar. As you can see, we got Aimi Shazana, we got Muhammad Haziq, and our beloved supervising teacher, Teacher Shahani Alia. So, what is actually educational gap? Based on Jackson 2020, the educational gap or the difference in achievement between students with varying levels of advantages throughout their development. Now is the analogy of the difference level of academic achievement. As you can see, student A got better academic results than student B. So here are the examples of students with varying levels of advantages. The first one is students that live in rural or remote area that is lacking of education facilities. The second one is students that live in poor household that can't afford learning necessities. And the third one is students with health issue. Now I'm going to move on how online class create educational gaps. So the first one, Zulaika 2021 has stated 4 challenges faced by students during online classes. The first one is technical issues. So some students don't have suitable devices, or they might need to share the devices with their siblings, and some of them not having internet connections. The second one is online distractions. What can I say about this? Some students got the devices and online internet connections, but they tend to play online games, watch videos, and online chattings during the classes.
The third one is lack of interactions. Because of this, students felt isolated and they might get in the way of productive learning. The last one is short of knowledge. Because of this, some teachers are unable to efficiently use Google Meet, Zoom, because they are used to traditional way of learning, which is by books. And some students are not used to digital learning. So I'm going to move on the effects of educational gaps to students. It resulted in learning gap. So what is learning gap? Learning gap is a discrepancy between what a student has learned and what a student was expected to learn by a specific point in their education. So let me show you the analogy. As you can see, teachers in class already taught until chapter 6, but the students' knowledge still at chapter 2. So, to introduce you more about learning gaps, there are 5 types of learning gap. The first one is communication gap. The second one is environmental gap. The third one is motivational gap. Fourth one is skills gap. And the last one is knowledge gap.
So in this research, we have conducted a survey which first we want to identify, did the online class really create educational gap among the students? And next, did the educational gap affect students upon the school's reopening? And lastly, is there any help by others to minimize the effect? A quantity from the data has been collected from the survey, and the survey is consisted of 10 questions with 5 points of Likert scale response. 204 final students has answered the survey, and we are using purposive sampling method, which the survey being distributed evenly to the female and male student as well Form 1 until Form 4 student. And we have used descriptive statistics to analyze the data, and we was focusing on the frequency and the percentage. So here's the demographic background of our respondent, which most of them come from Kedah, and there are also other states which such as Kelantan, Kuala Lumpur, Melaka, and etc. So the first finding, we want to find did online class really create educational gap among the students. So the first question, I have internet connection problems during the online classes with the highest response of sometimes with 51%. Next, I have access to gadgets and devices to join online classes with the highest response is always with 64%. Based on these two questions, we can see that yes, most of the students got the device and gadgets to perform online classes, but most of them also got the problems with the internet connection, which then created the educational gap amongst them. And next, I felt unmotivated during online classes. This is related to the motivational gap, as my first presenter has presented to you, with the highest response, with sometimes with 45%. And next, I prefer online lessons than face-to-face with the highest response is never with 44%. This means that the students really prefer the physical class rather than the online class. Next finding we want to find is that the educational gap that we have found out just now really affect the students upon the school's reopening. With the first question, we asked, I struggle to catch up with the latest topic after the schools reopen, with the highest response is sometimes with 30%. And next, my exam result maintains after the school reopens with also the highest response is sometimes with 33%. Next, I feel stressed because of my exam results with the highest also sometimes with 33%. And lastly, I think online classes have improved my academic achievement with the highest response is never with 32%. Based on these 4 simple questions, we can see that their academic has worsened after the pandemic era upon the endemic era, which means their academic have dropped after the pandemic era. All right, next, we want to find is there any help by the others to minimize the educational and also the learning gaps. First, we have asked about their parents, about did their parents help them throughout the online classes? And yes, 60% of them answered always. And same as the teachers, we asked them, did their teachers help them throughout the school reopenings? And 44% of them answered often. So based on this, we can see that most of the surrounding and the society really aware about the learning gap and educational gap that happenings to the student. So we also have provided the recommendation for the we have divided into 3 groups of people, which is the student, the teachers, and the parents. So the first one, the parents' role, based on UNICEF 2022, has stated 5 recommendations, which is here are 4 of them. The first and second one is to plan a routine together and plan and have an open conversation. This is for the parents to know what is the challenges that their child is facing throughout the online class and upon the school's reopening. And next, they need to take care of their children's education facility so that the educational gaps is minimized and not happening towards their child. And lastly, they need to track their children's activity, especially in the online classes, so that we can prevent the existing of ignorant students. And next, for the students, they need to analyze everything that they have missed during the online classes, and they need to inform the teachers and also discuss with them on how to solve the problems. And lastly, based on the OECD 2022, there are 3 ways for the teachers to minimize the effect, which is the first one. They can personalize learning intervention. Next, they can add additional resources. They can add additional or specialized instruction for certain students. And lastly, they can add additional resources based on student needs, such as some extra exercises or some extra notes. And one of the intervention that our school have done is that by having sign up peer tutoring. So what is sign up peer tutoring? It is when the top achiever of a certain subject will teach the student with who achieve bad grades in a certain subject. It is proven effective because based on the academic result in the mid-year exam, it is improved from the previous exam. It is because some students felt shy or sometimes afraid to ask their teachers in class. So by having their friends or peers as their teachers, it will motivate them to ask whatever in their mind is.
So in conclusion, we have analyzed 3 major gaps that happens to students. The first one is knowledge gap. The second one is motivational gap. And the third one is environmental gap. And based on our research, we have found out that the educational gap during the pandemic really affected students' academic upon the endemic era or the schools reopening. Thus, we need to take action so that the next generation will have a better future for themselves. And that's all from us.
And lastly, here's our references throughout our research, and that's all from us. Thank you.
Thank you for the presenters. Now I would like to invite participants to ask questions. Please be reminded that only 2 questions can be asked.
Test.
Audience, we do have audience. Any questions from the audience? No question, we have to ask questions. All right. All right. Based on your okay, I'll ask 2 questions, right? The first one is based on your early readings, the problems, I guess. What would be the main problem that is very evident or noticeable from your finding to those in the literature or to those taken from your readings, right? Because you have done the references and so on. That is one question. The similarity that your findings as well as those found in the readings that you have done. What one similarity? The next one is in terms of the recommendation. How did you come up with the recommendation for the problems that you have identified? 2 questions, eh?
All right, so first question you asked about the similarity about our past reading and our research.
Yes.
So based on the past reading, we have identified that students who facing technical issues with the gadgets and the internet connection. So we have provided the survey question to ask them about the devices and the gadgets. So we can see that most of them got the internet connection. So they got the problems with the internet connection. So that's the similarity between our past research, between the past reading and our research. For the next question,
The recommendation. How do you come up?
Okay, thank you. How do we come up with the recommendation? First, we have stated about um, the past article research based on their recommendation on how to solve the problems, and we also have introduced our own recommendation, which is sign up peer tutoring. And how do we come up with this? Because we have asked some of our students about how they feel in online, how they feel during the classes with their teachers. So based on their responses, as I said earlier, they sometimes felt shy or sometimes afraid to ask the question. So how do we know it's effective? The mid-year exam have improved than the previous exam. Hope that answers your question.
So the mid-year exam is when you utilize the recommendation.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
All right.
That's all from us. Thank you.
Thank you for the informative presentation. Thank you to all educators for your time.